I'm gonna make my comments and talk tonight against a real case study, a do no harm road construction project in a very remote valley in a far flung country. That means the company I'm a partner in and that I helped to co-found, have been tasked to do a mid-term project, do no harm context analysis. The project as such had a very positive impact. For example, it raised income levels for farmers throughout the area. However, it also came at a very high cost, as you can see on this slide. For each kilometer of road built, civilians and armed militias were killed. So how do we manage negative impacts of development projects, and how can we exploit the positive impacts? And the argument I'm going to make throughout this talk is by better understanding the concepts of complexity and emergence. The usual way we go about is understanding the levers through which we interact with the systems in which we are working. Some of these levers are, for example, actors. On the left side, a local employee of the organization who built the road. In the middle, an international consultant. On the right side, a guardsman of a local militia active in the area. But we don't want to know only the actors, which we in our case did by doing social network analysis. We also want to know about their reasoning, about their behaviors. How do they make decisions? And what kind of actions do they take? In our case, we used a participatory gaming approach to better understand how farmers, traders, shopkeepers, power brokers make decisions in this particular valley. Finally, we wanted to know what is the population, who is the population in which this road project is actually implemented. To do so, we conducted a population synthesis, which is basically about estimating each and every unit in a given population on the individual and on the household levels with regard to age, income distribution, where do they live, how much land do they hold, and so forth. But the question is this really enough? Well, I would probably say no, because what we really want to know is what are the consequences of our actions operating in a given social system. And understanding the consequences of our actions has a lot to do with understanding the system in which we operate. So how can we go about that? We chose an approach called social simulation. Social simulation, in a nutshell, is basically about rendering the actors and their behaviors, about which I talked a couple of minutes ago, as agents. Little computer programs that we then have interact in a simulation. Resulting from these interactions are certain dynamics and patterns on a macro level. Now, this idea of social simulation is darn close to what we call emergence. And emergence is a key concept in complexity. But the problem with this is that we look at only emergence between individuals interacting with each other and an emerging macro structure. And I can actually even give you a good example for emergence on the macro level. Here you see, for the area in which the road project was built, the impact the road had on income distributions for farmers. The red dots indicate that after the road project they had less income. The blue dots show farmers, families who had more income, and the white ones, I'm not really sure whether you can see them, but the white ones indicate that there was no real change for them. The problem is this is a somewhat antiquated concept of emergence. I also call it the myth of emergence. Why? Because individuals interact with each other on the micro level, giving rise to structures on the macro level. But these macro patterns and dynamics do feed back into the micro level and change individuals' behaviors and therefore interactions. And furthermore, individuals can, some of them at least, for example power brokers, strategically manipulate the macro level. And I can give you an example for that. Here we go. This is an output from the simulation, and you can see the interactions and changes of behavior of power brokers as a result of the road project. Two power brokers on the top left have a substitution effect with regard to their power base. Some of their patronage network is changing from one power broker to the other power broker because the road project introduced different resource transfers and streams. Another power broker on the lower right just lost a lot of traffic because the new road is diverting away traffic from the place he lives, and therefore he has less income. And another power broker on the top right has more income and therefore starts to developing land. This will indeed feed in again into the macro level dynamics. Now that's only half of the story still, because we also have emergence on the meso level, meaning individuals interact with each other, giving rise to group formation. Those groups interact again with each other, giving rise once again to patterns and dynamics on the macro level. That then feeds back into, from the macro level to the meso level, changing behaviors of groups and therefore interaction patterns, which again feeds back into the micro level, changing individual behaviors and therefore also individual interaction patterns, and so forth. And I can also give you an example for emergence on the meso level. Intergroup conflict. What you can see here is that the road construction project fed in a lot of resources so that militias in the area did not have a lot of reason during the project to fight over resources because they were in abundance. Once the project came to an end and this resource inflow stopped, militias started to fight again, and as you can see on the y-axis, that the number of total casualties started to increase again. Now, this meso level also has another epistemological, if you will, use. It is on the meso level, as a very special colleague and friend of mine pointed out to me, that we can identify entries for intervention. Think, for example, about extending this relatively low level of violence and creating a pattern, a sustained pattern of low violence here. The problem is that you cannot intervene on the meso level. Neither can you intervene on the macro level. It's not something abstract you can deal with. You need to have something concrete. This concrete something is situated on the micro level. For example, the power brokers. You can negotiate with them, you can talk to them, you can mediate, and so forth. It is there where you need to go through these levers we identified before. This, again, will change behavior on the individual level, leading, hopefully in this particular case, changes to level of on the meso level, which then will feed up to the macro level for example, leading to even more improved economic conditions throughout the area. And of course, this then feeds back into the micro level again, in this case, changing behaviors of power brokers. So to make a long story short, emergence and complexity are great tools to understand and inform, ultimately, management for projects, programs, perhaps even policies, but only if they're understood properly in their entire complexity, and if they're applied in conjunction with a methodology that is commensurate with the complexity of the task.